I've had a fascination for cathedrals ever since reading Ken Follett's Pillars of the Earth. These are just incredible pieces of art and engineering, some built many centuries ago, and I'm just amazed about how they did it, especially without the tech of today, having to rely on more primitive tools and their unwavering faith. So many behemoth-like creations, from the giant pillars and realistic sculptures to the intricate glasswork and breathtaking paintings. Cathedrals are a massive source of inspiration and a testimony to what man can achieve. So I decided to begin work on a small game where you build your own cathedral. One could spend a lifetime studying architecture, the detailed and careful work that goes into building such stone giants, and the rich history that underlies each masterpiece. I'll just be scratching the surface with this first project though, but the building of awe-inspiring monuments is a field I like to explore often and thoroughly. For this creation, I could imagine the player controlling a large band of tiny dwarves building a beautiful cathedral. Although it would be far from a realistic representation of how such things are achieved, I still thought it would look very satisfying seeing a fantasy-like version of how large masterpieces are built. You would need to collect resources, make elevators, spawn dwarves, mine stone, and slowly but surely raise spires and sculpt gargoyles, angels, and gently arcing windows. One of my favourite cathedrals is the Duomo of Milan. I started there, creating a slightly cartoony version in Photoshop, using this image for reference. This is supposed to be a short project. Me and my brother Liam have many plans and goals for the near future, so I can't spend huge amounts of time on this particular game. But as always, time limits help me move forward at a more brisk and clear-sighted pace, limiting procrastination and freeing me from perfectionist ideals. Once the drawing was complete, I imported it into Unity, which is the game engine I use to make my video games. I'll be using a simple but very creative tool called the Sprite Mask to slowly reveal this cathedral. Players would build one block at a time, little chunks of the stone giant appearing before their eyes. Then I added the dwarves that moved back and forth. They hunger for work, for the hustle, and as soon as they reach what I call a cathedral block, they'll begin hacking away at it. I love the contrast between the tiny dwarves and the massive cathedral. It adds weight and importance to it. This will be the final result of a long and arduous group effort, riddled with danger, error, and sweat. Coding using the C# programming language, I let players place those construction blocks using a simple grid-like system, as well as spawn extra dwarves onto the construction site. Dwarves would need some means of access to higher up blocks, so I created a simple elevator system that carries them up. Before completing this cathedral, I want the environment covered in construction lines, ladders, cogs, bricks, and rubble. Again, nothing here will be realistic. That's a whole other project to tackle, perhaps some other day. We would also need resources, the first two being gold and stone. I could imagine a little village in the shadow of the cathedral, filled with quarries and gold mines, so I made a few drawings and got those into the game. Some time was also spent tweaking UI, so that players are aware how many resources certain equipment and buildings costs. I will admit that initially this was simply going to be a satisfying idle clicker-like game, but after laying some of the groundwork, it was slowly shaping up to become a mini strategic experience. I began excitedly writing down ideas and ways to expand this prototype. I still need to keep it simple and short, but really want the player to have to work hard to see the completed cathedral. He'll need to carefully manage resources and build cleverly to maximize production. But to add a whole lot more spice, we would also need some demonic creatures, intent on tearing down this godly creation. So while players spawn dwarves and elevators, they would also need to hire soldiers, create archer towers, and perhaps find priests to ward off the worst of the monsters. So to complete this MVP, I added tiny flying imps and golden flying soldiers that hunt them down. There's also this strange flying contraption that spawns extra dwarf workers. And that's about all I have to show for now on dwarves and cathedrals. I would love to hear your thoughts on the project and any suggestions on expanding it. Keeping in mind though that it is supposed to be a small project I'll work on from time to time and I hope to complete before the end of the summer. Currently my plan is to add a few more demons and defensive mechanisms, and also make it a little harder for players to build higher up, perhaps adding some oxygen system where dwarves lack air and need supplies carried by fat dwarf angels. We'll also need a couple more building options for the village. Of course, I know what game dev is like and how things can quickly get completely out of hand, so hopefully your comments won't be too inspiring and get dwarves and cathedrals overtaking my life like uncontrollable wildfire. I already had this War Machine project you might remember from early this year, which at some point needs completing. With that said, thanks a ton for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss any future game development videos. Okay, see you soon. Cheers.